Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of The Fourth Wall. Today, we have a very special guest with us, actually, our first guest. And I'm very familiar with this person because he is my co podcaster on You Are Really Dating Yourself. So we have Teddy here, and we are going to be talking about two great movies.
We should applaud for Teddy. Joe, drop the applause sound.
I don't have an applause sound.
No, you will in post in your edit.
Thank you
Yay.
very much. Honored to be here. Appreciate you guys having me.
Thank you for being here. So, this idea sprung about from the brilliant mind of Mr. Clean, right? So, we all really thoroughly enjoyed two movies recently that were relationship related, right? So, we had The Drama and we had The Invite. So, today we're going to talk about these two films and how they're really like bookends of a marriage. And we're going to break them down, analyze them, and get all of our thoughts on what is going on here. So,
Before I do that, Amanda, let me interrupt you.
yeah, sure.
What do you guys talk about on your podcast?
Oh, Teddy, why don't you take that one?
Wait, and it's called You're Really Dating Yourself. So what do you talk about and why is it called that?
We are calling it that because we talk about relationships, first of all, dating, especially as it relates to people who are older, not necessarily like in their 20s, but
What are you implying about older, huh?
I mean, I'm in my 40s, Amanda's in her, and so we,
Still
you know,
40s.
oh, okay.
Joe and I are in our 80s.
Right.
Close.
So we talk about people who are dating maybe for the second or third or fourth or fifth time, they're back in it after an absence. And we also kind of in the first season, which we finished up a little while ago, wove in movies that shaped the way that we look at relationships. So When Harry Met Sally, or I can't think of any of the other movies.
500 Days of Summer.
Exactly. So, we're looking at starting season 2 eventually, but I thought we had a good time in season 1, just kind of talking about our experiences and what it's like out there for those of us who are not spring chickens.
And if our viewers have not yet heard your season 1 podcast, where are they going to find you?
The most likely places are on Spotify or on YouTube. We had a hard time getting onto Apple for some reason. They're very stingy. They wouldn't let us on, but YouTube and Spotify, we are all over the place.
You are dating yourself.
You're really dating yourself.
It's really dating yourself.
Yeah.
Why that title?
Well, we thought it's kind of, you're really dating yourself as a pun, right? So the age related factor, like showing your age, but then also how you're kind of learning about yourself in the dating process and learning through your interaction with others.
Yeah.
Cool.
There you go.
And by the way, I've listened to some of it. It's a good podcast. These two sound great. It's very professional. Y'all should check it.
I've listened to every episode.
He has.
So
Joe is
you're
amazing.
not so cool, Clean. I enjoyed the Pretty in Pink conversation because that film's been a bit of a pet peeve of mine. I love John Hughes, but there's a lot of bad messages sent in that film, in my estimation. Although I always, for probably the majority of the time that I've been on this planet and saw that film, I always thought the end line from Blaine to Andy was, you told me you couldn't believe in somebody who didn't believe in you. You just didn't believe in me. I thought that's what he said. He says, I just didn't believe in me. And for all these years, because I'm obviously not very bright, so I took it as like a form of abuse, like, hey, you made me hit you. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. And here I was wrong the whole time. But I still have a lot of problems with the whole idea that he was the good guy, because he wasn't.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, anyone out there who's wondering what you're talking about, go listen to the Pretty in Pink episode if you are really dating yourself. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But you really make a good point there, Joe, of like where when you watch these movies as a kid, they sort of shape your view of romance, right? Or how
Yeah.
relationships work, and they kind of build these avatars of what you're looking for, maybe. And then as you rewatch them as an adult, you're kind of seeing how you were misled or
Yes.
you misinterpreted things, or these people are actually sociopaths or psychopaths, whatever.
Yeah.
Like it just sort of really changes your view as you come back to them later on.
No, 100%. And it's funny, a lot of the films of that time, especially with taking something like Can't Buy Me Love or something, the message that again is being sent. There was always the theme of the good guy gets the hot girl in the end, but that's not very realistic, and that's why. And I'm going to bring it up again,
I
Amanda,
know,
even
we
if
can
you
do this every episode, Joe.
Yeah,
the last
we should
American
find
rich.
an opportunity every episode to do this, Joe. There's something else that I think I will bring up every episode that'll probably be brought up later. But
I'm
go.
just telling you, it was the only realistic ending
Yes.
to when, relationships back then. It's all about who's the cool guy at school, and you
Right.
don't realize until like 25, maybe 30 years later that that guy was a loser the whole time.
Mhm.
And, now he's some, bald asshole somewhere. And,
Hey,
oh, sorry, Clean.
Sorry.
It's almost like I intended to take that shot. All right.
Well, okay, so you bring up a good point that kind of leads into what I wanted to talk about first, which is we grew up with these romantic comedies that were very idealized, and sometimes just downright silly, right? We had talked before on a previous episode about the death of the summer blockbuster movie, right?
Mhm.
So with these films and the success of the drama and the invite, does this mean the death of the rom-com as we know it? Because I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I really can't think of many rom-coms because we went through the early 2000s where every movie was a rom-com, right? Like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days and those types of movies. I
there
think
were a lot of them, and we tend to think of them as chick flicks because of that. But all us guys, even if we don't see them in the movie theater, we end up seeing them on streaming at some point
well,
anyway.
right, and I feel like a lot of those types of movies, when they are made right now, they go straight to streaming. They're a
Mhm.
Yeah.
Netflix movie, they're whatever. So I want to open it up to because these two movies are very gritty and realistic. And like Joe says, it's not the Disney ending that we all grew up with. Do you think that's the direction that movies about love and relationships are going to go? So I'm going to ask Joe first. Go ahead, Joe. What do you think?
Yeah, probably only because we've all been inundated with the Hallmark Christmas movies, and that formula is pretty consistent, even though those are rinse repeat. We just swap out the characters, overly driven woman who works in the big city. I mean, to
Mhm.
even talk about it is kind of like hack at this point, but she works in the big city. She has to go home for Christmas. There's some
Mhm.
candle maker guy, and he's just really dynamic. And, should she leave behind all the trappings of her corporate career to just find true love? And then they just swap the characters and we do it over and over again. But that formula is pretty consistent in a lot of rom-coms, right? So I think people are bored of that. And now examining the other aspects of how relationships can go, um, I think becomes more interesting. So I think that's why we're seeing this.
Clean. What about you?
Yeah, I agree too. I think I used to do a lot of work in attached to branding and the way products are talked about and stuff. And this goes back starting about 10 years ago, but in the last decade, everything was about authenticity, right? About being authentic and about how younger consumers were not finding things to be very authentic and not buying into that brand. And I think that falls into what we're dealing with here with what we knew as the rom-com. It doesn't seem very authentic.
Mhm.
That said, with this new take on it, what we're seeing in these two movies, there's a lot of drama in these two movies, and one of them is called the drama, obviously.
Mhm.
There's a
That's
lot
right.
of drama. And there's a lot of drama in the invite. But there's also a fair amount of comedy. Actually, a lot of comedy, I would say, in the invite.
Yes.
And a good bit of comedy in the drama. Um, um, and so I want to pose a new phrase. Since rom-com is going to be dead,
Mhm.
we all know what dramedies are, right?
Yes.
Drama comedy. These are rom drums.
Or drom-coms.
Drum coms. That's what I mean.
That flows a
Drum,
little better, Mr.
drum,
Marketing guy.
that's what I meant. I reversed it in my head. Drum coms.
Okay.
So it's the dramatic romantic comedy. Drum coms.
I like it. Teddy, what do
That's
we
where we're
think
going.
about Teddy, what do we think about drom-com? Is this the direction these films are gonna go?
I think that nothing in entertainment is ever final, and there's always a cyclical pattern where, something sells well for a little while, and then eventually it stops selling, and so they shift to something else. But then after a while, people get sick of that and they come back around. So I think with these two movies, you're seeing the feature length version of what's been happening in television for a long time, where shows that have been labeled as comedies are really just dramas with like two jokes per episode. I can't think of any great examples off the top of my head, but it's been a meme for a long time where it's just like there are shows on HBO or Showtime or any of those prestige channels that are listed as comedies, but when you watch them, it is like one of the best examples early on was The Big C, right? It's about
Mhm.
cancer, and like the whole show is really heavy and deals with all kinds of intense themes, but there's just like one or two jokes, and they're just like, yeah, it's a comedy, and so they use that to get nominated for Emmys or whatever. And I think you're seeing that with movies as well, and eventually people will get tired of the grittiness and they'll want some sugar pop stuff to come back around, just like with music, right? Like we went through grunge, was all heavy and dark and cynical, and then the Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears came out of nowhere
Yeah.
to upend that. So I think we're just going to see it come back around.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly you're probably not wrong. I think generationally, tastes and vibes change, right? So the way Gens Z and Alpha will attack that category will be interesting to see because their lives have become very different from the rest of ours.
Yeah, I started to watch a film, speaking of the Gen Z thing. It's called Our Hero Baltazar. Um, and there was a lot of um the character going live on Instagram crying about his life. But I didn't get to finish it, so I'm not trying to review the film. But when I read the reviews, there was a lot of Gen Z people saying, yes, this is our generation. This is who we are. And for me, watching it and having kids that went through all that phase, I just was like, this feels kind of annoying to me. Like, just from what I saw. Again, I didn't finish the film. I didn't even get very far. But I think at a certain point, we all eventually lose touch with what's cool, what's interesting, I think. Film's different because, you tell a good story, and if you tell it well, then it's interesting to watch no matter what. But when you're really dialed into specificity of a generation, that's where I think it is hard for us to know. But thematically, like tone wise, I think with Teddy, if I understood correctly, you're saying we can get back to the rom com pure, like proper, but it might just come in a little bit of a different form, I
But
guess.
on my comment about generational differences, though, Amanda, you brought this up earlier. Why don't you talk about this? We were texting about things, and you were talking about the sort of the Gen Z attitude towards sex and movies.
Yeah, apparently. So there's a movie coming out called, I think it's called One Night Only.
Yeah, I think it just opened, um,
Right. Okay.
and
Yeah, One Night
the
Only.
reviews are not that great.
Mm-mm.
Well, I
We
wouldn't think
haven't seen.
it would be right, but from what I could tell. No, I was watching the news the other morning and they were saying that this movie originally had sex scenes in it, and but they decided to cut them out and not include them, in the final version of the movie because the Gen Z audiences don't want to see sex scenes in movies. They're uncomfortable with it, especially if they're going with like their parents or whatever. Like it's just cringe to them. They don't want to do it. And it's just like, well, I'm Gen X and we were
Isn't
all
that
about sex in the movies,
that's
right?
so
So
weird? We
um
grew up with everybody wanting sex in movies.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing about that movie specifically, from what I understand, and I saw the trailer for it, and it looked horrible. It played before one of the films, possibly
Yeah.
The Invite, but um, it's supposed to be like The Purge
Yeah.
of sex, where
It's one night
premarital
a year.
sex, yeah, one night a year, and it's kind of odd that that's the basis of the film, and then you're not going to show a sex scene. But I'm kind of with Gen Z on this. Like when I watch shows or I'm watching a film and they go way too hard, no pun intended, into the sex scene, like I just kind of I feel, I don't know, maybe I'm getting old, but I just feel like it's sometimes overdone and bordering on porn, and I don't need to see it, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, certainly, even when I was younger, there were times where I'd be like, if I've seen a movie once already and now I'm watching again because I like the movie, but there's a big sex scene, I I might forward through it.
Yeah.
Not because I'm a prude, but because it's sort of kind of the most boring part of the movie. I don't mind seeing them be hot and sexual for one another, but to spend 5 minutes
Yeah.
with, in low lighting and like sexy music and whatever, it's like, all right, we all know what's happening. Okay, come on,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like
back to it.
I get it. Let's, let's
Teddy, I
just
want to hear from Teddy though.
yes.
What's your take on sex scenes in movies? And again, are we going to get back to even rom-coms eventually? Since you said it's cyclical, where sex is going to be in the movies again. I don't know. What's your prediction?
I would say no. I think, that is one issue where the society shifted under our feet, right? Like the internet wasn't a thing for the first hundred and some years of film history, and so there was a certain kind of movie made because people liked that sort of plausible deniability of like, oh, it's for the story, and they could see famous people naked and that was okay. But I genuinely, I used to be confused when people say like, oh, I thought it served the story, so it's okay. I'm like, did it though? Like, did you need to see someone's ass in order to make that
Right.
part of the story?
Exactly.
And so like, I think once the internet became a thing and pornography became readily accessible, it just is like, well, I don't need those two things to coexist, right? I mean, you saw HBO in just a few short years go from making Game of Thrones with what did they call it when they would like do they would be describing everything but using a sex scene to do it. I can't think of the word. There was a term for it.
Oh, I don't
Anyway,
know.
yeah. So anyway, they're just like having a very monotonous dialogue, but it's happening while there's a salacious scene on in order to keep everything feel like it's moving forward. And like now on the new version of Game of Thrones, the House of the Dragon, there's barely any sex at all. So it's just
Yeah.
like it's been a very quick shift, and I think I'm okay with it, and I hope I don't think we need it to come back.
Skinamax would not work these days.
No, it would
That's what
not.
I'm saying.
Used to love it. That was those were fun times, Skinamax.
Skinamax
Should have
and
enough. It
when you
wasn't.
Skinamax would be me while I still lived at my dad's house, coming home half drunk, and it's 1 in the morning, and it's like, oh, let's watch some Skinamax.
That's what was on, and I thought it was fun. Okay, so we're going to be talking about these two movies. Very, very brief recap. Now, we should tell our audience if you have not seen the drama and or the invite, we're going to be talking about spoilers. So, you might want to watch them and come back. But so the drama, which is the one that came out first, Zendaya and Rob Pattinson, of course, and they're this young couple that is about to get married in a couple days. They're with their friends at their reception tasting, and the friends propose that they tell the worst thing they've ever done in their life before they get married, get it out of the way. They did the same thing. They all go around the table telling their worst thing, and Zendaya is the last one, and she says her worst thing that she's done is when she was in high school, she planned I don't know what we're allowed to say, a mass
Uh, a
school
school mass pew pew.
school pew pew. Okay.
I think you have to say mass unaliving.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. Who cares? Just say
Okay.
whatever.
So Rob Pattinson's now in this predicament where he thought he knew this person, right? And everything about her.
They'd been
And now
together for about 2 years, maybe at this point.
something like that, or
Maybe.
maybe not even. I don't know. I forget the time frame, but not a super long time, but not a short time either. So he has to navigate, okay, what do I do now? This wedding is happening in a couple, it's not like this
It's
happened.
in 1 week, right? All this happens.
Yeah,
This is like the weekend before the wedding that they're
it's
doing the
2 days.
tasting dinner.
Right. It's yeah. So, and then the fallout from the friends and everything, right? Who, of course, we know I hate the girl, the girlfriend.
Oh,
Then
well,
Haim, which I loved Haim. I don't know. That was a whole thing.
so, is it Anya? Annie?
I think it's Alana Haim.
Alana Haim, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Sure. I hated her so much, but
so you hated her in a good way, the way you were supposed to hate her, right?
she did a good job making me hate her
Yeah.
because I totally did. But I thought her thing was way worse, honestly.
It was way
Um,
worse.
and then we had the invite, which is about this couple, played by Olivia Wilde and Seth Rogen. They've been married for a while. They have a daughter, 12-year-old daughter, and they,
Who fortunately we never see in the movie. I'm glad they got rid of her before the movie started.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, like didn't get rid of her, but she's off at her friend's house for an overnight or something.
right, right.
Yeah.
But
So
then
we never have to see a child in the movie.
we never have to see a child. But what I think is interesting, and I'm sure get to it, but the last scene in the movie is from, I didn't realize it the first time, but it's from the viewpoint of the daughter's room. Like she's
Yeah.
looking at the parents, so to speak. So that could have its own connotations. But anyway, the invite, this couple, things aren't going so great. They're pretty much just roommates at this point. They haven't had sex with each other in a year, and they're just bickering and things are not great. And then they invite this couple, or she invites the couple over, played by Penelope Cruz.
Who
Uh,
lives directly above them.
Yes, directly above them, and they've been keeping them awake with their loud sex, and so they come down and they start talking, and they find out that all the noise they've been hearing are these crazy orgies and things that they're having, and they eventually proposition the couple, to partake in that, and they go through a journey with their self-discovery and what that means for the relationship as well. So that's kind of my short version of what is going on. So what we're proposing is that these are, again, bookends of a marriage. One of the things that struck me, though, once I was trying to connect the two movies, is in the drama we have kind of the shock of, wow, I thought I knew this person, but I don't know that person. This is really scary. Like there's this major thing that I did not know. How did that get past me? Whereas in the invite, I kind of think they know each other.
Like they know each other so well
They just
that
don't care.
they don't. Yeah, it's like
They
there's
don't.
nothing exciting
So
anymore.
we'll start Teddy this time because I'm dying to know. So Teddy, I've been telling him how I love the invite so much, right?
Yeah.
And he watched it, but I never got to find out what he thought of it. So Teddy, what do you think about like the connection between these two films? How do you see it?
I mean, so yeah, they're both hard to watch in a way, right? If you've ever had any relationship trauma, you kind of can't help but see some of your own stuff come through as like in a mirror. But I will say too, it was really interesting. I've seen a lot of movies at this point in my life. I'm pretty jaded, right? I feel like I've seen the same plots done over and over. I've seen the same characters. Like it's very hard to surprise me. I didn't know anything about either movie until you told me, Amanda, about the invite and you told me to watch the drama. Like I've just kind of been checked out lately of seeing new stuff because I'm just kind of bored. And the
This is
drama
exciting.
the drama surprised me. I will say, like I did not know anything going in. I never saw a trailer, which is my favorite way to experience a movie. I don't like genre classifications. I don't like it when people tell you spoilers or say that it's great or whatever. So I love going into a movie just completely untouched by predetermined suppositions, whatever you want to call it. So the drama definitely took a turn, right? When I first was going through what is it, like the first 20 minutes, half hour, I was like, oh, it's just going to be like another rom-com. This is like this generation's
Joe did the
When Harry
same
Met
thing.
Sally.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, like they drop a bomb and like I got to give them credit. Like they went for it. They just didn't,
Yeah.
you know, they didn't
On
have
that note, Teddy, the only thing I knew about it is like she has a major event in her past that causes him to doubt and wonder what if they're going to get married and blah, blah, blah. And the whole time I'm thinking, like, what could it be? Like, did she kill somebody
Yeah.
accidentally? Like, I didn't see this one coming. I had no when she said what it was, I was like, oh, so even me, I'm expecting something big to happen.
Right.
And it was even bigger and more sort of difficult for an American audience to take than I would have ever expected.
Yeah, I was very surprised that this movie even got made. Like that it's we are so um school violence is such a heavy thing, and it's so weird to see it put into a movie like this. You would expect it to be, I can't remember the name of the movie, but years and years ago, one of the more progressive directors made a movie about a school violence issue. And
Oh, did Gus Van Sant do that?
Gus Van Sant, yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I can't remember what it was called, but he, you know, like even then, right? This is 20 years ago, I think it was made, and it was upsetting then. I can only imagine it's worse now, or maybe we've just gotten too indifferent to it happening as often as it does. I don't know, but I really was impressed that they went for such a divisive topic that
Yeah.
for such a mainstream movie.
Well, and also to not just, you know, approach that subject, but to create almost sympathy for her character. Like
Mhm.
it was demanding that you see this as, well, she was troubled and this isn't who she is, which is kind of it shouldn't technically be, but it is a very touchy subject in the environment we live in, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Go
sorry, I
ahead.
just the other thing that I really wanted to say was that what's so interesting about that movie and how it's subversive to me is that they start off with that bomb, right? And so you're just like shook, like, oh, what is happening here? This makes no sense. I didn't think this was where this was going. And then there's like an X shape in terms of the structure where Zendaya's character, I hope I'm saying that right. It's Zendaya or Zendaya. She, over time, you're transitioning into Robert Pattinson's character and why he's problematic, right?
Mhm.
So, like, it starts off with her being the one who surprises him, but then as the movie goes on, his reaction and how he deals with it and how he kind of fucks up everybody around him, you
Yeah.
really begin to see, like, oh, she's got her act together and he does not. And so
Yeah.
that was kind of another surprise for me that I wasn't really anticipating. I thought it was kind of just going to be him wrestling with this crisis and not knowing how to deal with it, but they kind of just did a pretty big switcheroo where you're just like, by the end of the movie, you're like, God damn, like she should leave him. Like this.
Yeah, 100%. That was when they meet in that diner or whatever in the end. I was like, why would she even want to speak to this guy at this point?
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
know? So that was a pretty interesting magic trick they pulled off there, you know.
But
Yeah.
Yeah.
to get to your earlier question, Amanda, the juxtaposition there of the drama and invite, like, so the drama surprised me and it twice, right? It went in two different directions than I was anticipating. The invite was not as surprising to me at all. It was good. I thought it was well executed, but I felt like it was a kind of a predictable journey, like where everybody kind of gets their turn to have their emotional moment. There's like, what the premise is going in, that they're going to be propositioned into this group sex situation, but I definitely did not expect them to go through with it, and then they didn't. And so I was a little disappointed. I was kind of hoping that there would be some fallout from them actually going through with it. But I just judging by who was playing the characters, I was like, there's no way. There's no way they're going to
Yeah.
go through this.
Yeah. Are we really going to see Seth Rogen in a sex scene that we're supposed to take seriously?
Right. With Penelope Cruz, of all things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the invite was enjoyable, but it was not as challenging as the drama was.
Not as challenging, but more, some of the things that happen in the drama are played a little over the top, especially once we get to the wedding. I love the wedding scene. I really do. But it's, they're playing it over the top for fun. I mean, it's a movie. They're making a movie at that point, and it's really fun. Whereas the invite, almost nothing is over the top. Every bit of it is pretty realistic, I think, on what could happen with people like this.
I know people who have reached that phase of their marriage where they're just thoroughly bored with each other. I know people who have gone on to engage in such activities. And so to me, that was what was interesting about the invite. I mean, it was funny, but it was an examination of, you're in this, theoretically, you're in this for the rest of your life. And people do become incredibly bored with each other, and I agree with Teddy. At no time did I think they were going to have sex with the other couple. That would have been the surprise if they had done that. But it was more interesting for me in that aspect of like watching this situation being addressed. And it's been addressed before in other films, but um, just the idea, and especially like the character of Ed Norton Hawk,
Yeah.
these kinds of corny ass, higher consciousness types injected into that. And in both cases, in a weird way, you're dealing with a couple allowing outside influences to infiltrate their thought processes. You know what I mean? Like they didn't go out looking for another couple to have sex with, but they
Yeah.
brought this idea and normalized it and made it seem like your relationship would benefit from something like this. In the drama, Robert Pattinson was completely happy with Zendaya, and he, at the outset, he was taken aback by what she revealed, but it was the outside influences of the other couple and the people around him
Mhm.
that started making him really think she was like demonic on some level.
That's
Which
a
then
really
leads to him having his brief office sexual harassment,
yeah, that was wild.
sex outside the marriage. So you've got in the invite, they are coming together to have this sex outside the marriage, but it doesn't happen. And in the drama, like it shouldn't, and it does, but it does in a way that like he could be fired and thrown in jail for. So
Yeah. Well, she was willing participant.
Well, and they
yeah.
never did anything. I mean, really, he just what kind of just grabbed her and kissed her. I mean, not that just. I mean, that's totally
No,
inappropriate.
there was I think there was penetration from the rear. She turns around on the
No,
desk.
No, no, no. They
she
never.
stopped,
No, he
Oh,
stopped.
okay.
They didn't do it.
or he
Okay.
stopped,
What
I
movie
should
are
say.
you watching?
I haven't seen it since it opened, since opening
Okay,
weekend. So in my
yeah,
mind, I remember her turning around and the
she
And
did.
skirt coming.
and you see, this is why Clean doesn't need sex in films because he just imagines it anyway. So it doesn't, you know what I mean?
Right. So you were saying before, I think all of us said like movies can be hard to watch. So it's funny scrolling through Instagram this morning, I saw a reel come up about the invite and the guy's like, I need to just warn you because I don't think enough people are giving this warning of like, possible triggers, but he's like, I do not recommend watching The Invite like with your partner if you are going through some shit. If you are in a great relationship, by all means, it's a wonderful movie. But he's like, you need to be prepared for some things because he's like, if you're struggling with your partner and you're like at each other's throats, it is going to be absolutely unbearable to watch this movie. So, I don't know if you guys had any thoughts
I
about that.
I would agree with that for sure. It's funny. I took the same couple to the movie. Like I'm seeing a movie in the movie theaters like once every weekend, pretty much, as we do now. And I I have a couple who's friends of mine. Um, and as far as I know, they have a really good relationship. Every indicator is it's a pretty good and strong relationship.
Mhm.
But I took them with me to the drama, and then a few months later, I took them with me to the invite. And when the invite was over, I was like, "I'm sorry, I take you to all the relationship movies that go awry."
Yeah,
So, but they didn't seem to have any issue because I don't think they have any issues. So.
I
yeah.
do. Yeah, this scenario in the invite literally happened to me, right, in my
Oh,
own life, like
oh,
in a
all
smaller
right.
way.
Wait, were you Ed Norton or Seth Rogen?
Oh no, I've never been Ed Norton, and I never will be.
I was
There's
gonna
no
say,
reason
I hoped you weren't that after I called him a douchebag and stuff.
to. No, I am a douchebag, but I not as you have to be a certain level of like handsome and charming, I guess, to be Ed Norton level of douchebaggery. But like, yeah, we when I was married a long time ago, you know, my ex and I were very conservative upbringing type people, and we had been married for a long time, and were very much the people who were bickering constantly, and all of our friends were kind of just in that mode of like, oh, this is so awkward because they can't have a normal conversation without fighting. And so there really was not a lot of comfort around for anybody who was around us,
Mm.
including us. And so like, you know, I latched on to somebody who was very more like worldly and experienced and whatever, and we kind of tried to get a multi-partner thing going, and it just exploded spectacularly. Tears were had. You know, it didn't go quite as bad as in the movie, but it still was just like a negative experience, I think, for all three people. And it
Yeah.
was just again, it's like when you're in those situations, you're desperately looking for something to make this marriage like just a spark, an outside influence, a change, anything to
Yeah.
try to fix it. And most cases, instead of grabbing a life raft, you're grabbing an anchor. You know, you're just making it worse, not better. And that was what happened to me, and that's what happens in the movie, right? You know, I think Amanda, you raised a kind of an interesting point about the ending. Like, you know, are they? I guess people were questioning: are they together? Are they not? My question is: does the Edward Norton and Penelope Cruz characters do they even exist?
Oh, interesting.
Hmm.
I don't think that's a real question, but it did occur to me towards the end when they just mysteriously vanish. I was like, wait a
Yeah,
minute.
Yeah.
there is a theory about that going around that they actually represent, like, in Greek theater, like, the god and goddess coming down to intervene,
Right.
Hmm.
and it's almost like Penelope Cruz is like Aphrodite or whatever, you know, and they kind of make them question things, they do their job, and then they disappear,
Right.
right?
They're
And
guiding them through the journey.
I've not heard this theory, but I
It's
like it.
yeah,
it's
I don't think
interesting.
that's actually what's happening,
Right.
but it's actually a good theory because if you take them out, if you just let them be ghost characters or like something like something like after this, like they're not really there, this movie still works.
Right. Yeah,
It
because
isn't.
the whole thing is about, sorry, Joe, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, no, go ahead.
The whole thing is the challenge between them, right? That's the only thing that the movie is focused on, is like, will these people work or will they not? And so they're being presented with these other two people who are kind of like the idealized versions of what they both want, right? Like Seth Rogen is like down and hates himself, and Ed Norton is very self secure and is outgoing and, you know, an alpha male. And then Penelope Cruz is kind of the like the sexually mature, very grounded person who doesn't experience anxiety, whereas Olivia Wilde is like a constant ball of worry. And
Yeah.
so it's like they really are kind of just like looking at the best possible versions of themselves. And the only thing I think that really pokes hole in that theory is that at some point Edward Norton and Penelope Cruz also experience like their bubble bursts for a minute, right? They
Hmm.
have their times where they're just like, oh, it's not as perfect as it looks, and they have their own bullshit too.
When he
Yeah.
comments on her accent and the way she says a word.
yes.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Shut the fuck up." Yeah, it's great.
It's interesting because, as I said, I do know people who have gone down that road with their marriages and stuff, and it doesn't. I now I have to assume there's people I know that do engage in that activity that I don't know about. They, you know, that they're not broadcasting it or it doesn't leak out. But in all the scenarios where I do know the people that have done that, it leads to more problems. Like as Teddy was saying for his situation, it exploded. But even the ones I know that it didn't end the marriage, but the marriage is not in a good place still. It's just they accept now this is the rules of engagement basically, and they're still looking for something else outside of the marriage. It hasn't resolved any problems internally.
Yeah,
So i
yeah.
don't I don't know that I do not recommend. If this was my Yelp review, I do not recommend. I don't know. Then again, I don't engage in it, so
You
Yeah.
don't recommend that activity, but you do recommend the movie.
Oh, I recommend the movie. I laughed at the movie, and like I said, I liked the aspect of watching. This is a real thing that people have been together a long time that maybe grown apart. I used to remember I would hear people say, "Oh, we grew apart," and I always thought it was a cop out, but you do sometimes. It's a real thing, and it's not a conscious thing. You just interest shift. Um, Outlook on life shifts.
Yeah.
I've known couples that once were completely aligned, and then over time, in this wild world of politics we live in right now, politically became untethered to each other, and that led to a downfall. So but when you're watching people trying to weather the storm and thinking, well, maybe this will fix everything, maybe this will do it.
Yeah. Of course, but I think the biggest thing with the invite and where their problems, were coming from, the source of their problems was really that both of them lost themselves
Hmm.
and what was important to them. And no amount of going outside the marriage and doing novel things with other people was going to fix the fact that they clearly established, and I thought Seth Rogen was phenomenal in
Yeah.
portraying this and how he snapped because he was very funny, but when like Ed Norton tried to touch that piano, he shifted
Yeah.
really quickly, and it
Yeah.
was believable.
I
Don't
might say
touch that.
this is Seth Rogen's best role
I think
because
it was his best. I
he
thought
he had to be he had to be as funny as we normally expect of him and as serious and
serious, and the
intense
closest
as
I've seen him come
and
is
he was believable in all of it.
yeah, I'm a big fan of Knocked Up. I don't think he got enough credit for that. I think
I
that
love Knockup.
ridiculous movie, but Seth Rogen has some really serious moments in
Yeah.
Knocked Up, and it's convincing, right? I saw that same Seth Rogen in this, but he had a band, he had dreams, he loved music, and now he's in a shitty music job. But the
Yeah.
way Olivia Wilde's character sees it is, well, at least you're still doing what you want to do. I never got to be an artist. I just
She just had to stay home and be mom,
I'm
right?
sta and that the part where he says, like, "What do you do all day? What do you do all day?"
Yeah.
Ooh,
And
that I know. I was like, "Oh,
that
don't say that. Don't say that."
No,
that
but
was
that was
rough.
a really interesting moment because, like, I finish that thought, Amanda. I want to hear where you're going with
Well,
that.
no, I mean, it's to me, that was like that revealed so much about what he thought about her and her worth. And then but she's saying things to him where you can tell that she doesn't value him at all either. Like, they don't value each other and they don't
But
value
in a
and
way, she
ironically,
builds him up because she wants him to do more with music.
she does, but,
But
like
you never see him build her up.
that's yes,
So,
that's very true, but ironically, like, the music is what drew her to him in the first place, right? Like, the entire reason why she goes and runs 11 blocks back to the bar is because there's something about him as a musician that she's really drawn to, and
I
now
bet
he's
you could relate to this, Amanda.
but I
no,
think it's really interesting how you are saying that moment was like, oh, Seth Rogen being an asshole, and like, she kind of was on the defensive. Like, I kind of viewed that as a revealing moment for her because she has no answer.
oh, no, I agree because I was, then I was like, "Yeah, what does she do all day?"
Yeah. I mean, she's flitting about and kind of doing that, she's
Besides
buying
buying
stuff.
rugs.
Right, and she's like kind of there's another again I'm losing words today, but there's a word for those kind of people who are like always surrounding art but they never really engage with it, right? They're just kind of like on the outside of it and just can appreciate like, oh, I saw this painting and like I used to dabble in art and I kind of I almost had a personality is kind of how I view it.
Yeah.
Like, and so she kind of sees in Ed Norton that like he actually knows who these people are, or at least, for a
Right.
portion of the movie we
I,
think.
I loved when he recognized the rug she has.
Yeah, but she doesn't even know. She has no idea what it
Yeah.
is.
She didn't know what it was. Yeah.
Right.
And there was, I'm not trying to be like, I know all these people, but I've known people like that. She's incredibly pretentious and she has a vision of what being sophisticated is. So she's mimicking it, but she doesn't know the intricacies of actually being that person. She just sees it and she's parroting what she's seen.
She knows she should have prosciutto, but she's afraid she got the wrong.
Exactly.
Oh,
Like,
right.
exactly.
And when Seth Rogen says to Penelope Cruz when she's like, "That's not he's like, "Don't tell her that. She will literally kill herself." Like
Yeah.
she knows. So she has absorbed now, of course, I'm a film teacher, so I notice these little things. But the fact that her shirt blends in with the paint, right? As she's standing against the wall, she blends into it, says so much that she's made this house her entire
Yeah.
identity, her
Good call.
entire
I loved the color coding. I loved the design. She and Rogan both wore similar outfits. They were both in this like light gray blue
Mhm.
and tan off white. But yeah, very sort of earthy and blending in.
And in contrast to Penelope Cruz and Edward Norton, who are wearing black,
black.
Yeah, they were like
thinking like
they,
there's ciphers. They're
yeah.
like, they're mysterious. They don't know
Yeah.
what they really are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, the other thing too is with, when we're comparing it against the drama, the warning signs kind of come up really quickly where, Rob Pattinson has that moment after he finds out where he's thinking back, what are all the things that could have clued me in, right? It's like an M. Night Shyamalan movie, like, oh, now I'm going to remember all the flashbacks that tell me something's wrong. So she's slapping him during sex. She's screaming at someone at a crosswalk and, getting all crazy, and there's these very like clear alarming warning signs that he thinks about, whereas in the drama I wonder, we don't know the warning signs, but I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, they probably had a lot of little things that just fester, like there was no clear. And being I have been in a relationship like that, right, where there's no big things necessarily that were like, "Oh, wow, if he did that, you should leave him." It's like these little things that build and build, and then you get to the point years later where you're like, "Oh, wait, what?" Like, how do you see that? Like, Joe, what do you think?
Well, I think those things are always actually there. It's just fresh and new, and you're overlooking things. But as time goes on, and you're not maybe quite as happy, um, they become more pronounced, And then if you're being honest with yourself and look back in retrospect, it was always that way. Like my first marriage, there were always the signs of what was going to go wrong, right? But at the time, there was a 5-year age gap. I was younger, and I told myself that a lot of our personality differences, which were so diametrically opposed to each other, was just representative of me being younger. I hadn't
Or she wasn't metal enough.
She was definitely
She
not
was
metal.
not
I
metal.
mean, there was no doubt she wasn't metal. But I'd say, well, she's older. I'm probably just immature and, that kind of thing. And no, these were just profound personality differences where we just interacted in the world very differently. And as you spent more time together, that became more of a nuisance and a problem. So I think that's probably what you're supposed to be looking at in the invite, that these things, and especially, like you're talking about with her, she's home all day. He's not living his dream. She's not living anything. She's just there. And now you only have the bad aspects to focus on, right? Because nothing good's happening for
Yeah.
anybody.
And she's so manic, and this is why if you don't like her character very much, you probably don't like it because she's so freaking manic and well, she is a little crazy.
Yeah.
But I think she's an interesting character in that craziness. But she's so manic because like it's like, oh, we have people over. Oh, I get to see somebody that's not my husband.
Yes.
Oh, it's like it's so exciting for her. She needs this so much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, as they kind of point out, where it's revealed that she's been naked in front of the window and trying to entice Edward Norton, or at least
Yeah.
enjoying I don't know what you call that, like the silent flirtation across the
Yeah.
apartment. First of all, I don't understand the mechanics of how an apartment can be directly above you, but also having
Yeah,
across the
I
way.
know. Me too. I keep thinking, like, is it in like a U-shape apartment?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was very weird. But, that was a really interesting way to kind of show that she's got repressed needs too, right? They both have
Mhm.
things that they have suppressed in order to stay married. But that's one of the things that drove me crazy about it is like, that's just how marriage works, right? If you're going to be with somebody long term and if you're going to start a family, you're going to live in an apartment that looks like that in San Francisco, and, one of you's not going to work, like somebody's got to turn off their dreams, right?
Mhm.
You can't 99% of people are not going to be able to be a musician who makes enough money to justify that apartment with three people in it and actually provide food and all that kind of stuff, not to mention insurance and whatever. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things that just like it drives me crazy when people talk about their relationships, and I could kind of see them like, in my mind at the end of the movie it disintegrates, they're over, it's done. But I could very easily see Olivia Wilde going and dating somebody else who is more like the Edward Norton character, is more like self-secure and whatever, and is just like, yeah, I'm a, I don't know, a venture capitalist or some crazy thing. And then she realizes like what she misses about the Seth Rogen character
Mhm.
and ends up leaving that guy and coming back to like a third person who's more grounded, like Seth Rogen. So I had this whole made up journey in my head, but I just feel like it's not fair to ask somebody to be like, hey, I need you to be a stable provider for three people and also pursue your dreams. Like that just doesn't happen.
No.
On that note, you kind of some of the things you were saying kind of address some of the ending of that movie. So you want to talk about that now? Like,
Yeah, because there's
it,
a debate. Do they stay together or is
Absolutely
her
not.
playing the piano at the end? Now, see, I'm the eternal optimist. Teddy always
so
gets
Teddy says absolutely not.
Well, I'll tell you why though, real quick. Sorry, taking too much of your time, but like
No, no, no.
the beginning of the movie, they have him very patiently explaining the notes to her, right? She is like trying to catch up, and she's trying to do the harmony, and she can't keep up with him, and he's just like, all right, come on, like do that. He's very patient with her, just like, do this, and they're laughing through it. At the end of the movie, he starts playing it fluidly and like it should be played, and she just gives up and just sits there and watches him. And to me, that's the realization, like, oh, he's gonna be fine on his own. He doesn't really need me. I don't really need him. I'm gonna find my own thing. Like we're gonna go our separate ways, and we're gonna be okay.
That's a interesting point of view. I hadn't really. I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about. I hadn't considered that, but that certainly could be the message there.
It just felt too much like a very metaphorical bookend,
Yeah.
right? They're putting that in place for a reason in my mind, and the fact that she just looks like she gives up trying to play the harmony at some point and just like drops her shoulders and very contentedly looks at him and is just like, oh, okay, yeah, you've been like
Yeah.
being nice to me this whole time with the piano thing, just the piano thing, and like I realize that we are not harmonious anymore.
Yeah.
See,
And
I
it.
thought the fact that she even goes and she hears him playing and she's drawn to it again, and then, resting her head on his shoulder and she's looking at him like I feel like admiringly and seeing that like, oh, maybe that version of him is coming back and that's what I fell in love with. And I don't know. Also, I've heard other people say this, but I kind of noticed it as well. But when Penelope Cruz kind of gets into therapist mode with them toward the end, and she says, "This relationship is over,"
Is over.
right? But this version of the relationship, but that doesn't mean that a new version of the relationship can't happen, right? But they would definitely need to do the work for that to happen. Now they have a daughter, so that could, look, I've been through this myself. I completely get the point where, she says, you're better off having two separate happy people for the child to see than staying together just for the child and being miserable. But have they realized enough about each other, or some switch flipped on where they're like, you know what, I'm going to try to give this another go and leave behind the old patterns and try this new way. So I don't know, the optimist in me thinks maybe they do work it out. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
Joe.
If
I
they do
took.
work it out, you will still want to be around them because they're going to be. There's no way they come back to a healthy balance with each other.
I
Yeah, I don't
I
think there would be a healthy
I see some
relation.
potential, but they still have to go through some shit to reach that potential, I think.
Yeah,
I
like
took
they
it
go to therapy.
I took it as well, like I said, I kind of what Teddy said about the piano is pretty interesting. I took it as when she said to them, "Your relationship is over." Um, I took that as that was kind of a, like you're saying, like an awakening moment, but not necessarily a positive one,
Mhm.
just a recognizing how bad it was, but also in that moment, like they're going their separate ways. He goes to his room, she goes to the bedroom initially, and I took it as she comes back because, okay, we tried to be these people, we're not these people, we are who we are here. And I kind of took it as a both of them resigning to the idea that this is who we are. Not that it was going to be a positive relationship from that point forward, just that, eh, this is us, this is who we are. But now I'm reconsidering my position because I do like that idea.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think one of the hard things too is that, when she says, just one day you just decide we used to have fun and everything was great and you just decided one day to be miserable, right? And that's kind of harsh because it's like I don't think anyone just says like I want to be miserable now.
No.
But so I thought that was a little insensitive, but then he kind of surprised me by saying like, "Yes, I am miserable. I want to be miserable, just let me be miserable." But
Yeah.
again, trust me, I know from experience, it's not fun to live with someone who is miserable
Yeah,
and
but
they don't
yeah.
want to do any freaking thing about it.
Yeah. That's sort of when the movie ended, and I've gone through a couple different versions of what the ending means, but when it immediately ended as I was in the movie theater, I was like, the relationship's done, and this is them being cordial, and this is them acknowledging that there was something good at some point. They're being friendly. They're not ending the movie on a fight and yelling. They're ending with sort of a tender moment, but that their relationship is done. Um, and I do think like 60% it's done. 40% of me feels like, or because they had this moment, now they're able to finally start talking about things they haven't been talking about. Like, okay, what does this mean? And what are we really going to do about it? And like, look, you have been miserable and I have felt uh ignored and like I don't even have my own life anymore, and maybe this begins like a second chapter, maybe. That's like my 40%, but that 60%, like it's done, is mostly because Seth Rogen, like you said something earlier, Teddy, about like you could picture her dating again. Yeah, I could totally picture Olivia Wilde's character dating, um, even if she meets somebody it also doesn't work out. I can see her keep doing that if that's what she does. That's her energy. I think that would work for her. Rogan, after this, is never dating again. Like
Yeah.
he's just a miserable guy who will live alone, see his daughter on the weekends. Um, he's never going to be totally happy. He's going to look at porn and maybe once a year treat himself to a call girl. You know,
Or he goes the route of Will Arnett in Is This Thing On, and starts doing stand up comedy at the comedy
well,
store.
Rogan
And
could pull that off, but
I mean, he started as a stand-up in Canada. Rogan did.
yeah,
So.
yeah.
exactly when he was like
Mhm.
15.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, go ahead.
but no, I like if 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 Rogan's character can't and won't completely change, although that tender moment there with him playing made me feel like maybe this was his awakening. But if it's not his awakening and if he can't change, like it's done and he's never going to date again, he's going to die alone and miserable. Um, he'll have a sex bot maybe in 20 years. I don't know. Like,
They're, they're, making them more
yeah.
realistic. But
But
anyway,
that's it. Whereas Olivia's
so,
character will just keep going. She,
yeah,
she'll she'll
yeah.
she'll thrive if never still having her own complete
But
own thing.
she's gonna hook up with any dude who gives her validation
Yeah,
because
yeah.
now one thing we haven't talked about yet, and being the only female on the panel here, I can tell you of a certain age, when they have that discussion about perimenopause and what
Oh yeah,
happens to women, I love that they included that because
yeah.
I think people don't realize that the changes that we're going through, I mean, first off, like the hormones and the, just making you feel like you're not yourself, right? Like
As a
you don't
man
know
of a
who
certain
it is.
age, I've been with women of a certain age, so I'm very well aware of this.
Right, right. And
Plus,
I'm
we go through menopause, so let's not
Yeah.
count that.
Yeah, stop
yeah,
trying to diminish us, Amanda. What about us? You
right.
know?
So what I think is interesting. So I'm glad that they brought that up just from that side of things. But the thing is, I think that she needs to, because we start feeling bad about ourselves. Like our bodies start to change and we're like,
Hmm.
what the hell is this? Right. So when you get external validation, and that's what she was getting from Ed Norton, you see, she turned on him too at the end when he comes in, here's the Rubio's tea, and she's like, get the fuck out of here, right? She's not really interested in him. She's interested in the way he makes her feel about herself.
Yeah.
And I would predict if she does go out there, like Teddy was saying, she's going to go for totally the wrong dudes because it'll be anyone who gives her attention because she's been deprived of that. The other thing is, we talked
It'll
about,
be Harry Styles. She'll get a lot of attention from Harry
oh, that's a whole
Styles.
other thing. But,
And let's be
we
real,
talked about
nobody who looks like Olivia Wilde is going to have any problem finding anybody she
no,
wants. Like
Yeah,
she's
I think
exactly
she's,
zero
she's
problems,
right.
you
so
know?
gorgeous. But so we talk about how the daughter, you never see her, right? But the thing is, I think the reason why they've been in denial, and like you said, they haven't talked about these issues, is because they almost can lean on the daughter. And I think this happens with a lot of
Oh yeah.
married couples with kids. All of their conversations are about like, oh, she's at a sleepover, she's doing this, she's doing that, oh, she's got a problem, she's hearing them upstairs, I have to lie to her. Then if you notice, like the first thing that they say after they kind of like are deciding we're splitting up, well, we have that place like vacation house, and how are we going to work it because she really likes it. It's like they distract themselves with things about the daughter to the point where like they don't probably talk about what each other wants anymore. Where do you want to go? It's like the daughter almost functions as like this way of like, how did they get away with not talking about this stuff for so long? It's like that daughter
Mhm.
was what they were focused on, right? And I think that is really common. I don't know if you guys have seen that with either yourselves or your friends, where it's like their relationship goes by the wayside and it's like they distract themselves from their shit because they're like, oh, whose house do we have to drive her to, what's she doing, what's her activities. And I don't know, what do you guys think about that?
Well, in my case, it wasn't that it was serving as a distraction. It was my marriage got to a point where my kids were the only thing good going on in my life. You know, like
Okay.
that was the only place where I was experiencing any joy and
Yeah.
so I guess it could serve as a distraction if you're intentionally using it to avoid having conversations. I was at a point where there was really no conversation left to have, it was just, hey, when are we really just going to pull the plug and, rip the band-aid off, as it were. But yeah, I mean, I think that's clearly some sort of a defense mechanism people could bring into play in that situation.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
child becomes a buffer,
Yeah.
right? Where just like you are focused on their logistics, like you said, or you're focused on their well-being, and so you come up with all these excuses as to why you'll delay the ending, but the ending will eventually come, in
Yeah.
my mind. Like they're just putting off the inevitable, and they'll go through fits and starts where they make attempts, but it'll eventually end in disaster. And I think the kid will be the first one to be like, "Yeah, it sucks, but Jesus, I'm so glad you're not screaming anymore. I'll take it."
Yeah.
Teddy, you Um, you said you weren't as surprised by the invite as you were by the drama.
No, not at all.
But how did you like the movie? Like, we haven't even really talked about this. How did you like the two movies, and how would you rate them on a 1 to 10?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think the drama I would rate like a 8 for what it is, like because it was so surprising. I think they both played their roles pretty effectively. Um, I think the invite I would knock it down to probably like a 7 or a 6. I
Oh,
thought that
wow.
Really?
yeah,
Just like
I'm
the
hard to
dialogue
please.
and everything. That seemed like
I thought, the dialogue I thought was pretty good, but it just was so it to me it felt like an off-Broadway show where it's just like you know exactly how it's gonna go. Like they're all just gonna go through their realizations and like there weren't any surprise moves really, and the ones that were surprising didn't feel really earned. Like the whole thing for me with Olivia Wilde where she kind of just immediately jumps into like wanting to have sex with Edward Norton, that did not feel like that character. Like, and this person who's extremely neurotic and everything has to be clean, you have to take your shoes off. Like I've dated people like that, ain't no way they're having sex on their butcher block. Like that
Yeah.
would not have, it was things like that where it just felt like there were little things and there were big things where the turn
Everybody should be having sex on Butcher Block. So I got to tell you,
I
like
split
you
the
Butcher
know
Block
trash.
and granite counters, like, are some of my favorite places.
Yeah,
I
it just sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
no, I was gonna say I totally agree with that because when that scene is happening and she's just like she's propping up and ready to go, and I was like,
She's like the prosciutto displayed on the counter.
yes, she
Like,
was. I was like,
wow.
wow, that's kind of man, she's really ready to go, you
But
know.
I will say, because I sent this voice note before, if like one of the things I wanted to talk about that's kind of random, but it impressed me. I think they do the best job, specifically Olivia Wilde, of showing the progression of drunkenness
yeah.
through the movie. And I would swear, now I don't know, I haven't read anything or seen anything about whether she was really drinking or not, but I would swear to you, because I've been there, you see after she has, if you notice, that champagne, the reason why she can't give them the flat champagne is because she drank it
Well,
almost
they both
all
did.
of it.
Yeah.
Her and
And that
Seth
was in
Rogen
the
both did.
span of like a few minutes. So she's self-medicating because she's nervous about them coming. She drinks
Yeah.
that. She has them open their anniversary, like 1980s wine, guzzles that down.
Yeah.
Then when she sees that Seth Rogen is, smoking with Penelope Cruz, then they're like, let's drink tequila. And there's that one moment where she takes the shot of tequila and almost gags. It was the most convincing freaking thing I think in this whole
Mhm.
movie.
She was good. She
She
was she was really good at doing it.
she looked drunk, and they even just the way she looked and her face, like she looks like she's drunk. I
I,
think she was, I mean, and
I don't think she was drunk. You cannot act and direct a movie while you're drunk.
well,
You
no,
just
no,
can't.
I mean for real life.
She's directing the movie at the same
Yeah,
time.
I wasn't saying she was actually drunk in real life. She looked like she was though. Like she
Yeah.
was convincing.
She is that
But I
good
think
in this.
she is drunk by the point she says
I,
yes, and her inhibitions are like out the window. So maybe it's she's trying to be perfect and uptight and impress these people. And then once she's drunk, she's like, F it, I'm just gonna act out my
I have to
fantasy.
say, I was so impressed with Olivia Wilde. She was never on my radar. Like, she's not an actress and or filmmaker that I thought of. I never didn't see her two other films, but nothing about them made me think I should see them.
Yeah,
But
don't
now,
Don't worry,
with
darling.
what she did as an actor and what she did as a director on this movie, I'm a pro Olivia Wilde. I will see anything else she does now.
Yeah. Teddy, what do
don't
you think? Have you seen the others?
Yeah, I seen Don't Worry Darling, and that movie just does not work it for me at all. Like it's a very cool premise. It's sort of, a modern take on the Stepford Wives, I guess, but
Mhm.
like it really just kind of didn't come together. And it's funny, I listened to a podcast called What Went Wrong, where it talks about that movie making process, and apparently like Olivia Wilde just like checked out
Yeah.
and was not on set for most of
That's what I heard.
She
That's
was
when she was
banging
all up
Harry
on Harry
Styles.
Styles.
Right, she was out banging Harry Styles, which, okay, sure, like I get it. But like there was a lot of confusion because Florence Pugh was just like, well, nobody's showing up today to direct this, so I guess I'll do it myself with the first, with the first AD. So it was like a whole big controversy, and so I totally understand why that movie didn't work because the director wasn't really there to shape the story. But apparently her first one, which I have not seen and I can't remember the title of,
Booksmart.
Booksmart, did really well critically and commercially for
And
an indie movie.
I was bored to death by that movie.
Really?
Real.
Yeah, it's just it's it's hard to kind of put into a category, but there's this vibe of like what's the other one? Lady Bird.
Yeah.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't like that either. Like is that am I thinking of the right one?
Yeah, that's the one that was Greta Gerwig and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Saoirse Ronan. Yeah.
Yeah. When everybody was raving about that, there's just like a it just feels like the alt rock of film, like where you're supposed to be getting something deeper out of it than is really there for me. Like if people love it, they love it, but that had that same kind of tone and that same vibe to it, and everybody was losing their minds. Like every podcast I was listening to, Booksmart, oh my god, you have to see it. So of course I had to see it, and I just walked away with, I mean, it was fine. I was like, it's not anything amazing.
Well, she certainly found her stride with this movie, and I bet she'll do a lot more now that are maybe closer to this. She needs these high energy movies that blend comedy and comedy and dramata.
Well, and also
Drama.
she didn't write this one or wasn't
No.
involved in any of the writing, right? It's an adaptation, so I think
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's
Rashida
probably.
Jones did the writing, which I
Yeah.
love her.
And it's based on, apparently this has been a movie like 4, 5, 6 times in different countries.
Mhm.
But right, I think she's probably got a better foundation to work with there
But
than what she's trying to.
Yeah.
they did do a lot of improvisation and writing their own. They'd come in, they had the scenes. It was all written. They had the script written by Rashida Jones already, but they'd come in and be like, yeah, let's see what else more we can do with it.
Well, Ed Norton's monologue, when I found out that Hawk's monologue was completely Ed Norton and all it said in the script was Hawk's monologue, and Ed Norton said, "Can I write it?" And that performance was like the first time anyone was hearing it. That moment actually made him a lot, because you do think he's just like this D bag, but when he tells his story, I found him a lot more likable, and or at least you could understand why he's gotten to this point. But I thought, and the other improv moment that I think was great was Seth Rogen. When he's going to, Penelope Cruz is like dancing, and he's like, thank you so much," and because Seth Rogen said all I could think of when Penelope Cruz was dancing in front of me was, thank you for this, thank you." Like he's like, that's the only thing I could really say.
That's a
But
very Seth Rogen thing. That's
Yeah.
it was great. And by the way, amongst the two films, I think it's going to be interesting to see award season, right? Because I believe all 6 of these main actors between the two movies probably going to get nominated for several
all
things.
of them
Yeah.
deserve it. Some of them will end up being left out because there just won't be room. Because like Robert Pattinson was great in this movie, but I do think this is going to come up. It's going to come up next month. I think his greatest movie this year is going to be the one coming out in September, prime time. That the word on the street that this is going to be his Oscar movie.
Yeah, there's a lot to work with there because Chris Hansen is such a scumbag of a character. Wow.
The new trailer, by the way, this is we're it's a little segue. We'll come back to the movies, but while we're talking about it, if you haven't seen the very latest trailer for primetime, see it, because I just watched one this morning that was like, wait, I thought I saw this trailer. This isn't what I saw. And I saw filmmaking, I saw shit going on that I'm like, whoa, this movie's there's a little avant-garde. It's arty. It's an arty movie in some ways. So I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, Robert Pattinson, Zendaya. I have to say, Zendaya, this was one of my favorite Zendaya roles because she plays a lot of things. I don't dislike Zendaya. I just don't. I'm not like she's all that either. Like she's fine. certain roles, like in Dune, because it kind of plays into what she does naturally, which is just kind of like scowl and be look more serious than she maybe needs to be. In Dune, it works. Um, in other movies, I'm like, can you perk up a little bit or something? I don't know. But her her vibe played really well in the drama. I think because her character, she was a kind of a little weird character. That she was this girl who went through all that. She didn't have a lot of friends. In the end, her friends were his friends, basically, right?
Well, she
Well,
had to
yeah.
make them her maid of honor had to be
Yeah,
that lady,
yeah.
Yeah, which
she
Like
was
wanted to punch in the face because
she
she doesn't
didn't
have her own
she
friends, and again,
doesn't have her own friends. And
ally.
like her that Zendaya thing worked for that character really well. So it's why I liked her probably more than I've liked her in anything else I've seen her in.
yeah.
But I think all these and the actors in the invite, obviously, I think did
Yeah,
a phenomenal job.
every one of them. And how do you pick a, like, let's say all four of them get nominated, which two get a best actor actress and which two get supporting?
Yeah.
Is it just Olivia and Seth are actors and
People say
the other two
Penelope,
are
I feel like
supporting?
say Penelope was the best actor in the invite and brought the most because she's the only one. Well, I heard someone say in one of the reviews, like she was the only one that you didn't sort of flip flop on. The other ones are like you really dislike them in some moments, or you really might like them in other moments. But she was kind of consistently. And what I love about her, we didn't bring this up yet, but she was influenced by one of my favorite gurus in the love department, Esther Perel. I've been following Esther Perel and her books and her, everything about her for at least a decade, right? And she was called in as a consultant on this movie. She's like a sex therapist, relationship therapist, and her books are phenomenal. She has one called Mating in Captivity, which is actually about how do you sustain a long-term relationship. Teddy, I think we talked about those books before. You're familiar with them, right?
Yeah, I read about half of that book and I just had a hard time getting through it. It felt a little bit repetitive. Like I agreed with most of what she was saying, but it just, I think if you've watched her TED Talks and stuff, you got the gist. I think she's really got some interesting things to say in her podcast. Where Should We Begin was really fascinating. But
Mhm.
in that podcast, she would broadcast a counseling session with a couple and go through their stuff like in
Right.
real time. And it was just fascinating to hear some of the issues. Now, it got into some really niche issues. Like it would be, I don't know, I'm just picking a random thing, but it was like the one guy really likes getting pegged by, some sex bot, and the girl is really into like hamburgers on Wednesdays. It was just like, wait, what? Like this.
How is that niche?
Right. Right, we all do that, but I'm just saying,
Mhm.
I was a little scared to say it because I was worried nobody else would get it. But yeah, it's just I think her podcast is really interesting to kind of hear how she works through that stuff with people, and I definitely saw shades of that when you mentioned that, Amanda. I was like, oh yeah, that makes total sense because this movie is like her bread and butter for sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think
So
Penelope Cruz should lose any awards because of the blonde hair. That was offensive to me.
it was a little jarring, but I came to like it because, like in the end, because it was so different. It's not what I expect of Penelope Cruz. It gave her an edge in a way. I don't know.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely edgy, and that's probably why they made that choice. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what awards are to be out there and whatnot.
So I'm curious, like we could keep talking about these forever, but I'm curious, Amanda and Teddy, like going back, if this were on your podcast now, what are our learning moments from these bookends of a marriage?
I don't think we ever really get into what we learn. I think we more just kind of break things down as as we encountered them. I learn nothing, and I keep making the same mistakes over and over again. So I don't know that I'm really.
Oh, don't we all?
We just
Yeah,
like vetching, but we don't. No, I think what you can learn from both movies is you better really, if you're going to commit to someone for potentially the rest of your life, you better really know that person, and you better make an effort, and it not just because they're a cool musician and you think it's cool to go and be a groupie at their shows, right?
Yeah,
Like
Amanda.
Well, let me say something about that, Amanda. It was just like John Kabat-Zinn, right? Big Zen philosopher, written up a ton of books. He says this thing about you will never ever know your partner. And that is the thing that I think I take away from any relationship movie is that you think you have a handle on what your partner is, and they will surprise the hell out of you 20 years in, 30 years in. They're just like, oh yeah, I want to move to Europe and I'm going, either you can come with me or you cannot come with me or whatever it is, right? Like I'm suddenly taking up a new hobby that you never thought I had interest in, and it just changes their personality because now they have a way to they feel activated for the first time in their life. So it's just the kids move out, everything's changes. Like what Penelope Cruz's character said about this relationship is over and a new one can begin, or you can end it, permanently. That I think is the biggest takeaway for anyone watching either of these movies. Like it's the same thing applies to the drama where they thought they knew each other, right? They were ready to make the commitment because they thought they knew what they were getting. And the reality was they were nowhere near knowing what each other really were. And so I think that's what relationships are. And for me, it's terrifying because I've been through some serious relationships and I've gone through that experience, and it's terrifying to start a new one, or the ones that you go through where you're kind of just waiting for that other shoe to drop if you have been through any kind of life experience, where when you're 20 and you're going through these things for the first time, you're just like, oh, we're going to grow together and it'll always be, that we're just like finding a way to come back to each other. And it's like, okay, you're 20, like talk to
Yeah.
me again when you're 50.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you also have to do the work. I think you have to be real truly invested, and I don't think you should get married unless you fully understand what that investment is potentially going to look like. It can't just be like, "Well, I wanna have a big party and with all of our friends and family," and, I think that's what goes wrong in a lot of marriages is,
Oh,
like, the wedding itself
yeah,
and,
100%.
you
Yeah,
know
that's a theme with us, I think, Amanda, is that it for me, there's a lot of like relationship inertia that drives people towards these actions that they don't fully understand. So like,
Right.
in my case, it was growing up religious. I started dating someone at 16. It was the only person I've ever dated, and my family immediately was like, "Well, when are you getting married?" At 16. And so like we were married
Yeah.
at 18, and that was late for some people, right? Like we had friends who were getting married at 18, and that was just like what is expected. You date someone to get married, you get married to have kids, you have the kids, and then, you generate grandkids, and that is your entire life purpose. And so I think for a lot of people where it's just like they get engaged or whatever, not really knowing what it is that they're holding on to, and they are just doing it because it's what's expected of them, and they end up in trouble because they are too scared to end it now because grandma's invited and she's coming from Dallas, and it's this wedding's costing thousands of dollars that my
Yeah.
dad put up, and you just
Yeah,
can't get out of it.
that wedding in the drama, like, should that wedding have continued? Should it have been called off?
Yeah. I think so.
I
Uh,
think in that situation they get a year to figure themselves
It
out
should have
yeah.
been put on
again.
pause.
Yeah.
And like to the point where at the very least they make an excuse. Like if this were the real world and not a movie. In the movie, yeah, the wedding needed to happen and we needed the hijinks that happens
Mhm.
in
Right.
that wedding in the wedding. But if it were real life, you put it on pause. You say 6 months to a year. We got some shit to figure out before we actually go through with this. So we're not saying no, but we're not saying yes right now.
Yeah, well, I don't know how anybody felt good going into that wedding.
Exactly.
Anybody. Like, I mean, obviously, some of the parents and stuff and the guests didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
But, certainly the bride and groom, how did you feel good standing there taking the vows in the midst of everything that had
Yeah.
taken place?
They do. They do. They go through with it.
Yeah,
So
so yeah, that wedding
it's
shouldn't have
interesting.
happened. But
I
yeah, I like that idea, Teddy, what you were saying about, never knowing your partner, right? Like, because I think when you cite the example of, they suddenly find a new hobby or something they're interested in, everybody carries like baggage, and I don't mean necessarily negative baggage, but you you get to a certain point in life, there's dreams you had, things you wanted to do, whatever. And the
Mhm.
older you get, you start to realize how fast time starts to move. And
Mhm.
people could just arrive at a place, they call it a midlife crisis or whatever they want to call it. But you start realizing you have not as much time left, that, well, maybe I got 20 more years, but the last 20 went by in a blink of an eye or whatever. And yeah, you don't know what any individual person, how they're going to respond to that kind of panic if that sets in. So I do think, I mean, I feel in my situation, I know Allison well enough. She knows me, but you never know how someone's going to respond to an event
Mhm.
or something that occurs. So yeah, I think that's probably fair. You never really 100% know your partner, but you certainly want to try to know them the best you can
Right.
before you get married, you know?
One
So,
Mhm.
of the thoughts that really jumped out at me in that theme was like, I don't know why this sentence popped into my head. I feel like I heard it somewhere else and I'm just repeating it, but that everyone is polyamorous.
mm,
In that either you literally are polyamorous and you're, with multiple people at the same time, or you're in multiple relationships successively, where, and even if you stay with the same person for your entire life, that relationship shifts over time, so that the one phase of the relationship ends and then a new one begins. Like Penelope Cruz says, say for example, there's a health diagnosis, right? You're together for 30 years and then somebody gets cancer, and your whole relationship now is a completely different ballgame, and you
mhm,
are no longer dating or married to the same person that you were. It's a different situation now. And so I feel like,
Mhm.
the definition of polyamory is pretty loosey goosey in my little sentence there, but I think we're seeing these movies are really good examples of that, where the relationship shifts in a very dramatic way.
yeah, 100%.
Well, if you would like to hear more discussions about relationship related things or dating or this phase of life, midlife and beyond, make sure you listen to our podcast. You Are Really Dating Yourself. Again, Spotify, YouTube. I'm sure we'll
Let's
give you the links.
drop it links in the
Yeah, I'll put it up on there.
description and all
Yeah,
that.
would be really cool. I want to thank Teddy for being here as our first official.
Oh, thank you. It was, yeah, such
Yeah,
a pleasure to be here with you guys. Thank you for letting me participate. Really, you guys are awesome, and I'm so glad I was able to be here.
awesome. Hey, one thing we didn't do, we got Teddy's numbers on this. This was not a full review of the movies, but we've never fully reviewed these movies. So, like,
Yeah.
let's go out with just as a movie, Joe and Amanda. How do you rate this? First the drama, and then the invite. What number do you give it?
Go ahead, Amanda.
We
You
got
go.
we got Teddy's right. He said,
He
It was
gave
an eight
a
and a six, I'll say.
8 and a 6.
"Ooh, I'm going the drama 8. For me, sorry, the invite was a 10. It was my favorite movie I've seen the entire year. I watched it
Don't
3
apologize for that. I think that's good.
Um, I would probably put the drama in a probably an 8 category too, and I wouldn't go as high as Amanda on the invite. I feel like I'm being a dullard, but I'd probably put an 8 on it as well. Like I really enjoyed it, um, but I don't know that I'd go as high as a 10 or even a 9. That's a tough number to get out of me. That's a
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah, well, 10 should definitely be the hardest. And I don't doll out 10s much, if ever. But these two movies were two of my three favorite movies of the year: Obsession, The Drama, and The Invite. And I think I like them all pretty equally for different reasons. And I liked The Invite as much as I liked The Drama. Um, and I have to give, I'm like, am I 8.5 or 9? Am I too generous with a 9? I don't know. Let's just be generous. I'm giving both the drama and the invite 9s.
Yeah, fantastic. So, see these movies if you haven't already, especially if you're interested in movies that address relationship issues, love, marriage, all of that. And again, Thank you for everyone who's been watching. We've been loving the comments, so keep them coming. We want to know what you think of these movies and if you see things the same way we do as far as love and relationships and marriage and all of that. So, thanks everyone for being here, and we will see you in the next one.